Many businesses incorporated in Dubai and the UAE, even those incorporated in free zones, are now subject to a 9% tax. This is the dirty little secret that a lot of these service providers don't want you to know about. And today we're going to answer their own objections. Had a few extra minutes at the airport before takeoff. Wanted to talk to you about this because I'm seeing people in the industry, the company formation people that are based in Dubai. Come to Dubai, Habibi, come to Dubai, set up your company here. And there was a time when that worked. There still is a time. Some people still should go and incorporate in Dubai, and I'll tell you who that is. But a lot of people went to Dubai at 0%. Don't worry, as long as you're in the free zone, you're not going to have any problems. You've got good banks. And then they give you all the other good reasons. But what I always tell you is don't conflate where you want to live with where your company should live. People are looking for this one-stop shop, but go where you're treated best means you want to put things where they're the best. Your company could be in the British Virgin Islands. You're a tax resident in Antigua. You have a couple different homes in different places. You own property somewhere else. Your bank's somewhere else. You want to diversify it. And there are some times with our clients when it'll be, hey, you can kill two birds with one stone, put your company here, put the bank account here, works perfectly, fantastic. But what you have now is people who are getting turned off from setting up in Dubai because, number one, they didn't want to live there. And so, let's say me, I don't live in Dubai. But you could say, hey, set up a company in a UAE free zone. They do have strong banks there. You know, it's in between Europe and Asia. That's convenient for a lot of folks. Hey, that could work. But why would you pay 9% tax to a place you don't live? And if you're going to live there, well, you might have to pay the 9%. You'll have to decide if that's worth it for you. A lot of them are talking about, well, it's not going to be that much. If you make $10 million a year, that's still $900,000 a year. Are you getting $900,000 in roads and bridges? More so than you would in the United States, where the bridges are falling down. But I don't know that $900,000 is worth it for any amounts of roads and bridges. And so because the corporate industry, because the offshore industry follows us, there are people now that I'm seeing responding to what I've been telling you about this new 9% tax. By the way, it does not apply to absolutely every company, but chances are if you set up your company, including in a free zone in the UAE, you will now have this 9% tax. And watch the episode where we talked about how you can't just salary it all out to a certain point. Here are the things that they're saying. Number one, they're saying you can set up your company remotely, then you come and get the residence permit, and then you get the bank account. That is correct. One of the nice things about the UAE is you can get residence by setting up your company there. You don't have to live there full time. You can pop in every once in a while and keep that residence. Now, generally speaking, although they are granting citizenship to a few very high-level investors, you're not going to get citizenships. The residence does not lead to that. That's the disadvantage of it. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But you've also got, as a resident, it's an easier process to open bank accounts. We've helped people open personal bank accounts without being residents. Sometimes that works, although I think increasingly they ask for your Emirates ID. They ask it everywhere. They can't imagine you possibly want to, you don't have an Emirates ID. What? What's wrong with you? But on the company side, having the residence is largely essential to getting that company bank account. So you get your free zone company, for example, you get your residence permit, then you go and open the company bank account. And again, the banks are strong. I feel totally confident that the banks are going to be strong. I don't think they're very well functioning. I think that my bank account in Dubai is actually one of the ones I try and interact with the least. The service is not impressive, even at the priority level. It's miles away from what you'd get for that amount of money in Singapore. But your money, I think, is probably safe. Do your own research, of course, on that. But here's the other challenge. Free zone companies can't really open bank accounts very many other places. I mean, if you've got a company, even in the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, that's 0% tax. Depending on how much money you have, you can get an account in the Caribbean, you can get an account in somewhere like Singapore. There's still banks that in some cases take those. There's banks in Switzerland that would take BVI companies if you have enough money, depending on your profile. There's plenty of banks. UAE free zones, I guess Swiss banks are flexible enough. Maybe if you said, hey, I got 10 million francs to put in the bank, maybe they'd look at it. But generally, UAE free zone companies have only been able to bank in the UAE, so you don't have that level of diversification. Maybe you don't want it, maybe you don't need it. But to anyone who says, hey, I want my company to be in the UAE, but I have some concerns, you don't have the banking diversification. So it's a one-stop shop. People are that's the message they're trying to get out. I don't necessarily know that you always want a one-stop shop. And so I think that what they're marketing this company to is you want to move to Dubai or somewhere else in the UAE, set up your company, get your residence permit, which doesn't require you to live there, but allows you to live there. There's no citizenship, but hey, there's no personal income tax, so all your other stuff, except royalties, except dividends from foreign countries, those may be taxed worse than somewhere else. And hey, 9%, what's the problem? So I'm seeing people who've watched us, and believe me, they all watch Nomad Capitalist, and they all respond, and they all make snarky little comments. And so my response to the big message out of the Dubai service providers now is, oh, well, it's only 9%, that's still pretty good. So the message has shifted from don't pay any tax, come here and pay zero, to it's still zero on the personal side, but actually what they don't explain is all the different rules of like you living there. If you live there, you can pay zero on the personal side, but you can't really have your company offshore somewhere else because they're going to basically tag that as a UAE tax resident company, and they're going to put the 9% on you. So if you're going to live in the UAE, chances are, depending on the kind of business you run, you're going to be paying 9% tax on the company. And if you're an American, you've got special limitations on how much money you can take out of that company at the 0% salary tax. If you're not an American, there's still limitations in terms of it has to be the proper thing for the business. You can't just make $10 million and then, I've got a $9.9 million salary. That's really not going to work. But what they're saying is, it's still better than the UK. It's still better than, but it's not as good as the British Virgin Islands. It's not as good as Hong Kong. It's not as good as a lot of places. We've got about 18 or 19 jurisdictions. We've got the full rundown that we use for our clients of who should go there, what kind of avatars should go there, what are the purposes, how do they work together. And there are even companies in some very high-level jurisdictions, you can pay 0% and you can be there. My philosophy in general is I want my company to be as tax neutral as possible. And then if I want to personally live in a place where the taxes are a little bit higher, I can do that. But then I have the ability to leave. So let's say I put my company in the British Virgin Islands and I want to go and move to Italy. I like living in Italy. Italy has a lump sum tax. I pay them 100,000 euros per year, 125 if I'm married, and they let me do whatever I want. The BVI, that company's accepted. So I don't pay where my company is incorporated. They don't want to be paid. I pay annual fees, not a lot of money, to renew that company every year. And the BVI is one of a number of examples. It could be Belize, which is a little bit lesser reputation. There's many, the Isle of Man, if you want something more sophisticated. There's many different options. But if I can be somewhere where I pay zero, then why would I want to pay 9% to not get the benefit? Now, some of those places, the British Virgin Islands, you don't get a residence permit to go and live in the British Virgin Islands if you pay zero. But why do you want to be limited to living where your company, with the planes ready? Okay. Why do you want to be living where your company is? Live for living's sake, incorporate for incorporating sake. And so the same people who told you for all these years, come to Dubai at 0%, suddenly the argument is shifted because I'm like, yeah, now it's 9%. Why would you go and pay that? Again, if it's worth, they say, oh, well, Dubai is safe and you can put your Bentley key in the Bentley and go to the gym, all the stuff you see on Instagram. A lot of places are safe. If you want to live in Dubai, that's great. Now, I would ask you, is it because you're seeing all the marketing for Dubai? I like to live in places that aren't widely marketed. That's just my personal preference. So Kuala Lumpur, I kind of like it because it's not that widely marketed. Nomad Capitalist Live is going to be in Kuala Lumpur. I want people to see it. That's why our annual event is going to be there, nomadcapitalist.com/live. I think people should see it. I market it. Most people don't. The average person would say, I'm going to go to Bangkok. I'm going to go to Phuket. I'm going to go to Singapore. I kind of like that, right? In Colombia, I live in Bogota. Most people live in Medellin. There's some very nice people, friends of mine, clients of ours who live in Medellin. Also a lot of digital nomads running around trying to get laid. Glad to be out of that unmarketed scene. And so they basically told you, hey, this is a tax-free place. You can pay less than 9% tax if you get a certain income level. Living in Ireland, living in Italy, living in Greece, certainly living in Malaysia, Thailand, other places in Southeast Asia, places in Central America, places like Uruguay in South America. There are Georgia in Eastern Europe. There's so many places in the world that if you make decent money, your effective tax rate will be less than 9%. And in some of those, you can work towards citizenship, including some pretty good citizenships. Ireland, Italy, for example, is two that stand out. So again, we help clients move to Dubai. Generally speaking, I'm advising them to bank when they need to for like their companies, if that's how they're getting in. Let's say they're not buying real estate through the golden visa, they're using the company as a cheaper way to get in. We'll advise them to bank somewhere else for the serious, big personal banking, but fine. I'm not here to tell you don't move to Dubai. What I am here to say is my point was, don't follow the marketing. If there's a place that's lesser marketed, maybe that's better for you. We've helped our clients move to 31 different tax-friendly countries. It may not be zero, but if you go to Italy, for example, it's not zero, but it's a fixed amount. And it's in there for 15 years. And the government didn't just kind of one day kind of slip it under the radar. It's 9% for most of you. It wasn't supposed to be. The free zones weren't supposed to be taxed under certain conditions, which would have been met by most people. And then one day it was just like, yeah, we're going to tax most of you. So I find it pretty funny. All the companies that all they do is Dubai, all they do is the UAE. Now it's like, no, but don't you know how safe it is here? Like, 9% is still pretty low. Right, but it's not the lowest. So you can decide, out of all the 31 different tax-friendly countries that we've helped people go to, if that's the one that you want to live in. 9% is tax-friendly, but it's not tax-free. I'd rather you pay a price to live somewhere personally, which is kind of the opposite of how the UAE does it. Okay, fine. Say you're paying the 9% personally if it's your company, no big deal. But there are places where you can pay less. There's non-dom programs, there's lump sum programs, there's territorial tax programs. Just because it doesn't say tax-free on the label, on the tin, doesn't mean that it's not very low tax. And people always say, it's talking about Ireland's tax-friendly. It could be for you, yeah. Yeah. If you're Garrod and you live in Limerick and you've always lived, like it's not tax-friendly for you. If you're from Atlanta, it could be tax-friendly for you. And if you make a couple $1,000,000 a year and you're thinking Dubai lifestyle, you could live in a country like in Ireland or in Italy, and you could work towards a great citizenship. If you're an American, wouldn't be the worst thing to have as a backup. People pay $1 million for Malta citizenship. What if you just lived there, paid $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 a year in tax? For many people, that's less than 9%, and you get a citizenship. And maybe it's a lifestyle that you like more. The point is there's so many permutations, but let's not go down this road with people who have no other product to sell you of, but it's safe. A lot of countries are safe. Malaysia's relatively safe. Not statistically as safe as the UAE, but you're still pretty safe. Georgia's pretty safe. A lot of places are pretty safe, and some aren't. But and yes, the UAE is statistically very safe. And people have reasons they want to move there, but I'm just, let's not fall into this trap of highly marketed places. Let's go where we're treated best. And by the way, I see some of the free zones now, they're suddenly, move to Saudi Arabia. Now we're in the Saudi Arabia business, right? Because they're like, holy cow, 9%, who wants to pay that? Now they've got to diversify. If you want to have all the options, you come to Nomad Capitalist. We help people figure out 31 different tax-friendly countries. I think 19 or 20 different corporate jurisdictions that we deal with. How many passports, how many banking jurisdictions, all of it. You want to pick from the buffet. And you don't want to deal with someone who needs to find reasons and who needs to keep changing their tune of why what they have to offer you works. UAE was 0% tax. People went there on that basis. It is for many businesses no longer that. And now they're trying to do the bait and switch on you where they're telling you how safe it is. There's places you can pay a lot less, including places that you probably don't know. We've made many episodes on it. You can go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn how we can help you. But those are my thoughts on service providers who have nothing else to sell. They suddenly have to find a new angle now that it's not 0% tax. Focus on keeping the corporate part zero if you can and levering up and down on the personal side for your personal income tax for lifestyle.